Now ask Mrs. Hall to read the rules of our public comment.
The public comment period shall be for the purpose of allowing the public to speak to the board on any matter which is not scheduled for public hearing at this meeting. To help conduct the meeting in an orderly and efficient manner, please refrain from clapping or other public demonstrations of support or opposition. Public comment period shall not serve as a forum for debate with the board or a question and answer period with the board. Remarks shall be addressed only to the board and not to staff, the audience, or the media. All public comments shall be made in a respectful manner. Cursing and antagonistic behavior are prohibited and shall be grounds for removal from the meeting. Comments should focus on matters or issues before the board or county and not individual board members or staff. Comments which single out an individual board member or staff may be ruled out of order by the chair. Each speaker shall clearly state his or her name, address, and voting district, if applicable. There shall be a time limit for each individual speaker of 3 minutes. No speaker shall address the board more than once during the public comment period at any single board meeting. The county administrator will time the speakers and notify them when their time has expired. Copies of the detailed rules are located on the back table.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hall. If any citizens here would like to address the board on any item other than those for public hearing, please come forward, state your name and voting district. Are there any citizens who would like to address the board on any other matter? Sheriff Lipper, good to see you this evening.
Good to see you, Mr. Rozelle. Members of the board, I have given a letter to Ms. Hall that would like to get that to you. And I feel the need to express this in writing to you and all the other board members, and preface it by saying I've talked with Mr. Ashcraft, I've talked with Dr. Kelo in the schools, and it deals with our school resource officers. So if I may, I'm going to recite this letter to you, as everyone else out there does not have it. And I have, dear Chairman Rozelle, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your recent efforts to ensure the safety and security of the children in our school system. I understand that the Board of Supervisors has ensured appropriate funding for deputies that work in and around our public schools. In these extremely trying economic times, every tax dollar must be spent wisely. With that said, the education of our children and the safety in our schools is paramount concern to all of us. I was very concerned about the loss of the funding needed to keep 4 school resource employees and instructors in their positions. The loss of the school safety and security that comes without having on-site school resource officers, along with the loss of the DARE program and the high school criminal justice program, concern me not only as a law enforcement professional, but as a parent. I am pleased that we were able to find funding for 3 of the 4 positions, and through some creative scheduling with Dr. Donahoe, all the aforementioned programs will continue. This will maintain a continued law enforcement presence in all levels of public education. Please accept my sincerest thanks to you and the other board members who favored these vital school resource officers that protect the safety of our children, teachers, and administrators. When we are able to teach our children well and provide a safe learning environment, we ensure the successful future of our community. Again, thank you for all that you do for public safety in general and law enforcement in particular. I remain yours respectfully, Sheriff A. Tony Lippa. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. We appreciate that. Are there any other citizens who would like to address the board? Are there any other citizens who would like to address the board during the public comment period? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public comment period at this time. Next, we have the first public hearing of the proposed amendment of Chapter 21 of Code of Caroline County. And let's see, who's going to present that tonight? Mr. Parton, you off the hook on this one? Is the sheriff going to take care of this? Okay, Sheriff, are you doing this, or is Julie?
I am going to leave this over to the experts in case you all have any questions with it, but the whole reason, the bottom line of recodifying the county ordinance is to help Caroline County as far as obtaining the fines and costs that deal with continued violations of animal control. It parallels that of the state code. I know the attorneys have looked at it, and we want to adopt the ordinance so that it comes under Caroline County enforcement. Just as an example, with most of the violations that occur, the fines for just this year alone, out of about 400 people that have gone before, at least 350 is what I'm roughly guessing on, that have come to court, would have been convicted, and a fine anywhere from $25 to $50, which would have netted us in Caroline County $8,750, which that money in fines now goes to the state. So with our efforts and our animal control personnel, I only feel it in the best interest of Caroline County to adopt the ordinance, which we can do by state law, and to proceed further under Caroline County.
Do you have any other presenters, or?
Well, again, if you
Sounds
have
good to
any
me.
questions that's dealing with it, you know, I've brought all of the experts here, from Sergeant Heffler to Samantha Jesse, who is out on the road now with us permanently as a deputy, and then also have Rachel Carty, who is both with animal control.
All right.
All right?
Thank you, Sheriff. Would ask board members if you have questions about the ordinance of the sheriff or his staff before we open the public hearing. Would there be any?
I have
None? Okay. Okay, at this time, we'll now go into the public hearing of an ordinance to amend Chapter 21, Animals of the Code of Caroline County to reflect changes in the Code of Virginia to reflect current staffing and supervisory arrangements for animal control and prescribe legal fines and penalties for violation of the chapter. Okay, are there any citizens who would like to speak at this public hearing? Are there any citizens who would like to speak to this public hearing? Are there any citizens who would like to speak to this public hearing? Hearing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed. Okay, board members have questions at this point?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Akers?
my only questions would be, I see that the lined out wording is what's in the ordinance now, and that's being replaced by a lot of verbiage over in the new ordinance, and I'm just wondering why we're having to turn half a page in definitions to about 3 pages. Is there some reason to do that?
I'm Deputy Jesse with the Caroline Sheriff's Office. I was instrumental in writing some of that. The state definitions are much more inclusive than the county definitions. If you read the current county code sections, there are only a handful of definitions. With expanding the animal code sections to mirror that of the state, some things are going to have to be clarified, and that's why you have so many pages of definitions. There are some things that are defined, such as necessary food, water, shelter, what is actually considered to be necessary. Those are things that were not defined before that assist us in those charges.
Okay, Ms. Poplar, did you have any?
I have no questions.
All right, Mr. Seeley?
No, sir. I think mine were answered during our first couple of readings.
Okay, Mr. Vice Chairman?
No questions. Motion on, Mr. Chairman?
Motion is definitely in order.
I'd move that the county adopt the proposed amendment, Chapter 21 of the Code of Caroline County. Second.
Motion moved and properly second that we approve the ordinance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. All right, motion carries. Thank you, Sheriff, and your staff. All right, next item, item 5, text amendment 01-2010, text amendment 02-2010, and text amendment 03-2010. Mr. Fincham, how are you this evening, sir?
Fine, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
Doing just fine, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your next public hearing can collectively be held on 3 different text amendments, all of which are related to signage in the planned recreation Recreation and Entertainment District. Collectively, these amendments would perform the following functions. The amendment to Article 14, Section 6 identifies that signs would be permitted in the planned Recreation and Entertainment District. The amendment to Article 14, Section 1 adds amendments that clarifies the submission standards for sign permits and the location of signs with respect to public roads. And finally, the amendment to Article 2, Division 6 would also allow or clarify the standards under which the signs are allowed in the planned Recreation and Entertainment District. If you remember, as we discussed in the first reading, when we adopted the planned Recreation and Entertainment District, we did not actually adopt the sign regulations at that time. After the adoption of those regulations and after the development of specifically the state fair property, we sat down with the property owners and with other interested parties and partners with the state fair to craft together this sign package and use this project as an example for the sign regulations that would be allowed in the planned Recreation and Entertainment District. You have attached in your package this sign graphics related to the entrance signs for the Meadow Event Park, as well as the building signage and the different gate signs that would be permitted under this proposed set of sign regulations. We believe that the end product is an attractive sign package that we can use as an example for other projects in the future should they somebody come in and seek a rezoning to the planned Recreation and Entertainment District. And with that, I'll answer any questions that the board may have.
I don't think we all have the drawings with us this time. I know we had it in the last board packet, but if you have one, you could pass back up here.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Thomas has one electronically. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. All right, just give us a minute to make sure we all get a chance to look.
I now understand the puzzled looks.
Yeah, we
Score
had
one
them
for
in
the nerds.
We had one in the last packet. They're beautiful.
That's right. See, because the nerds have them. I forgot about it. But yeah.
Just to basically expand on what those sign graphics demonstrate, each major entrance to the subject property would be allowed one of these major identification signs that shows the Meadow Event Park, as well as the partner, for example, Union Bank Shares or the Americraft Center. They're allowed signage at the major entrance locations as well. That signage would be limited to 100 square feet total, with 60% of that being for the Meadow Event Park and 40% being for the building signage. The maximum height of that signage would be 16 feet. In addition to that, each building would be allowed the equivalent of 2 square feet of sign area for each linear foot of frontage up to 300 square feet total. And there are also provisions for directional signs to assist the public in negotiating the property to the various buildings and events that would be held on the property.
Okay. All right. You ready for a couple questions?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Fincham, just as a logistic matter, We last, it was the last meeting or meeting before that, we approved the recreational entertainment district, right?
No. The planned recreation and entertainment district itself was approved several years ago.
Before the state fair came.
Correct.
Okay, that we made a modification recently. That was my question, is the state fair basically doesn't have to do anything else because they're recreational entertainment district already?
That's correct.
Okay.
This sign package catches up with that rezoning that was approved several years ago.
Okay, okay. That's what I was just trying to make sure. I wasn't sure if they'd have to come back and do something, but they don't, so we're okay. Thank you. That was all.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Seeley?
No questions, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman?
Akers? No. Mr. Popovich? Okay, we do one public hearing, 3 votes.
Yes, sir.
Correct. All right. We'll now declare the public hearing open for text amendment 01, 2010, text amendment 02, 2010, and text amendment 03, 2010. Are there any citizens who would like to address the board on this text amendment? Are there any citizens who would like to address the board on these text amendments? Are there any citizens who would like to address the board on these text amendments? Seeing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed. Board members, how would you like to proceed?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept text amendment 01, 2010.
Second.
Motion made and properly seconded. We accept text amendment 01, 2010. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. Next motion.
I make a motion that we accept text amendment 02, 2010.
Second.
All right, motion made and then properly seconded once again to approve text amendment 02, 2010. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept text amendment 03, 2010.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Seeley, second by the Vice Chairman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. Okay. All right. Next, I don't know if we need a couple minutes for our next public hearing. I don't know if Mr. Fincham, does staff have any items they need to put up or anything, or any PowerPoint presentations or anything?
The applicant will be presenting a PowerPoint presentation.
Right, you want to take a little time to
after our staff.
Get that going? Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to announce that if there are any citizens who would like to speak in this public hearing, there's a sign-up sheet. Mr. Fincham, do you have the sign-up sheet? Can you bring it forward? If there's anyone who wanted to speak but had not yet signed up, please do so at this time. Just raise your hand and we can bring it to you, but the sign-in sheet was in the back. And if you come forward to speak, we do need your name and voting district, but we will read our protocols for speaking at this public hearing.
right. Considering what we're right?
Mr. Fincham, I see that you're ready, but it looks like I've lost a couple of folks here. And we'll get going.
Mr. Chairman, you only lost one.
You've got that Saturday, right?
Which way did the county attorney go? Is she in here?
Yeah, no, I can't get high enough.
Mr. Fincham, have you seen the county attorney? Okay. I prefer the county attorney being here before we start the public hearing. Thank you, Robert. Okay, Mr. Fincham, I think we're now prepared to move on. I think that you can go ahead and start your presentation, and then we'll also let the applicants do their presentation, and then we'll read the rules of the public hearing, and then we'll have the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you do have a couple of handouts at your desk. You have a letter of support from the representatives of Knighton Lumber Company, who are property owners abutting this property, and you also have a couple of graphics. You have this schematic.
Check, please. Thank you.
Together with some other background information relative to the application. Mr. Chairman, this is the first public hearing on this item. It's the first opportunity that the board as a whole has had a chance to review this application and to hear public comment, and even as a group to generate any questions that you may have about the application. Staff would suggest that the board hold your public hearing tonight, gather any requests for information that you have as a result of the public hearing, and allow staff to go back and answer any questions that you have or you direct us to answer from the public. Virginia Land Investment LLC, hereinafter the applicant, is proposing to rezone approximately 1,059 acres of land from rural preservation and M1 industrial to planned mixed-use development to allow the construction of up to 8,659 residential units and 3.16 million square feet of commercial, office, and retail space. The application is to rezone to PMUD to allow a transit-oriented development which would include a multimodal transportation facility. Of the 1,059 acres of land subject to this application, approximately 766 acres, or 72% of the property, is currently zoned M1 industrial. The remaining 293 acres, or approximately 28%, is currently zoned rural preservation. And in your handout this evening, you have a map that shows the boundaries of the property consistent with the general land plan up there, which shows the properties that are currently zoned M1 as well as those properties which are zoned rural preservation. The 766 acres of land already zoned M1 already allows significant and intensive development potential, which has both traffic and utility implications. The M1 zoning classification allows for an extensive list of uses, both by right and by special exception. The bulk of the property is generally bounded by Rogers Clark Boulevard, Route 207 to the north, Interstate 95 to the east, the Pamunkey River and Hanover County to the south, and Jeff Davis Highway or US Route 1 to the west. The property is also bisected by the main north-south artery of CSX Railroad, which also provides Amtrak service between Washington and Richmond. The applicant is proposing a high-density planned mixed-use development, which, as defined by the comprehensive plan, allows for 10 to 15 dwelling units per acre of land. The Carmel Church Community Plan designation for the subject property is for this area to be designated as the village core with the density of 10 to 15 dwelling units per acre, transitioning to a maximum of 4 dwelling units to the acre at the edge of the village core. The maximum requested density of this application is approximately 2/3 of that density permitted under the Carmel Church Community Plan, with a maximum density of 8.2 dwelling units per acre. The Carmel Church Community Planning process started in the fall of 2005 with the appointment of a Citizen Planning Advisory Committee by the Board of Supervisors. The committee worked for approximately 18 months, and the board adopted the Carmel Church Community Plan as recommended by the Citizen Planning Committee in January of 2007. And as previously stated, this area is identified in the community plan as the village core. The transportation planning for this area and this property actually has a long history. Planning for a multimodal transportation facility began as far back as the early 90s with the first high-speed passenger rail study of the CSX corridor from Richmond to Washington, which designated Carmel Church as a likely location for a conventional passenger and commuter rail station with transit-oriented development surrounding the station area. In 1994, the Board of Supervisors adopted the comprehensive plan, which designated 3 potential passenger or commuter rail stations along the CSX corridor, those being Guinea, Milford, and again Carmel Church, based upon discussions at that time with VRE. The extension of VRE service is not contemplated nor planned to come to Caroline County at this time. And due to topography, soils, wetlands, and other factors, the Milford and Guinea station locations have become less desirable. In 2005, as part of the visioning process for the Carmel Church Community Plan and the designation of this area as a village core, with the emphasis on the utilization of CSX Railroad for a multimodal transportation center. During the development of the Carmel Church Plan, both the Virginia Department of Transportation and the Department of Rail and Public Transportation both analyzed this property and developed plans for a transit-oriented development consistent with the Carmel Church Community Plan. These actions also led to the inclusion of the subject property in the state rail plan and is identified as the only new station in the state rail plan. Finally, $490,000 has been earmarked through the Federal Transit Administration for the National Environmental Policy Act environmental assessment necessary to secure federal funds for the multimodal transportation facility. The board has a copy of the staff report, which addresses other planning and development issues. And if there are appropriate, or if there are questions later in this meeting, staff will be more than happy to address those questions or address any other information requests that the board may have. Mr. Chairman?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fincham. Do board members have questions of Mr. Fincham before the public hearing? Okay, with that being said, we'll now let the applicant make their presentation. Yeah, what's your time expectation on it?
About 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. Earth minutes. I'll do it very quickly.
Yeah.
I'll take it from those remarks. I'll do it faster than that. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, staff, my name is Dan Sloan. I'm with McGuire Woods. I'm here tonight on behalf of Virginia Land Investments, Litt and Tommy Thompson principals. This project begins not with a developer or a landowner, but with the community. And this statement comes from the Carmel Church Community Plan. Carmel Church must inspire a vision. And that's in fact what has happened. A vision not only with the landowner, but a vision that has flowed through the state. Mr. Fincham described the process in which the Citizen Planning Commission Committee report became part of your comp plan with unanimous support of the Planning Commission and the board, and then the VDOT funded study followed that. And that study talked about in detail how this vision should be manifest on the property. Talked about 5-story core, gave details on the extent and form of the project. We used that as our base, the landowner, in moving forward with the planning. Then in 2008, the Virginia Department of Rail and Public Transportation endorsed the project and endorsed the planning that had gone forward, but said it should be more dense than that. It said the importance here was to surround the rail station with a high density of residential development and commercial development. And they called for 8-story buildings and a slightly higher density than the VDOT funded study had called for. In response to these studies and following their general parameters, the landowner brought forward a proposal to do exactly what the community had called for, a transit-oriented development. That is a development that's focused on the train station and the multimodal center that accompanies it. A pedestrian-friendly design, pedestrian-friendly so that people could walk to the train station and we could maximize the number of people who were living in the immediate vicinity of the train station and avoid them having to get into cars and go elsewhere. It brought forward a proposal to do 6.8 to 8.9 units to the acre, about 2/3 of what was called for in the comp plan as the highest density, and brought forward a proposal to do not more than 11.8% single-family detached that occurs in the later phases of the project, and 3.16 million square feet of flexible commercial space. The proposal includes 224 acres of open space with a 100-foot residential setback on I-95, a 100-foot setback on Route 1, full RPAs except immediately next to the station, and parks as outlined in the studies that the county had obtained. An 80-acre regional park along the river as outlined in those studies, and a 40-acre government center so that the uses that the county can contemplate but hasn't finally decided on their form, such as the school, SPCA, a community center, those sorts of things can be arranged on the 40-acre site. This project is a little different than some others in that it uses what's called a transect for its design. That means that different parts of the project have distinct character, and that character is manifest in some parts of the project have very low density. Those are the ones far from the center. Some of them have a density that is comparable to a Ladysmith with that limited amount of single-family homes. And then it goes up through a couple of higher levels of density, with the highest density around the train station itself. It's important to understand how different this project is than other projects that have been proposed, because they share a sort of lineage from traditional neighborhood developments, that is pedestrian-oriented developments. It's easy to lapse into thinking about this project as one with the sorts of buildings that you might have discussed in a Haymount or a Ladysmith or in other projects. But the buildings here are fundamentally different. They range from 3-story buildings to 5-story buildings to, in the core, 8-story buildings, and they have a very different character. There is a process that will go forward for a design charrette that sets the architectural nature of that character, and the county will participate in that design charrette with its own architect paid for in the process of development. But it's important to think about this as that very different character, and when you think about 3.16 million square feet of commercial, how that is manifest, and the distinct center that it will create in conformance with the vision that was advanced by the community. One of the most important features of the project is its economic development opportunity. Here we're rezoning from industrial to 3.16 million square feet of retail, office, and industrial, basically building in the flexibility necessary to respond to pretty much any economic development opportunity that comes forward in the state. That will create over 10,000 development jobs and another 10,000 permanent jobs. Billions of dollars of economic impacts over the life of the project, and that number of billions sounds, sounds dramatic, but then when you take into account the size of the project, that's the appropriate word. 184 million of net tax revenue in its development stage over the cost of services for the whole project is what the